How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact. Hope everyone's doing well. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit all of your favourite vegetable buttons down below. Like and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, if you like my content, check out the links down below to my Discord community. You can support me that way and chat to me on there. And you can also grab my latest Vital preset pack, Metabase, which has got some wicked sounds. You'll also get a little discount on my production sessions with every purchase of that. Yeah, let's get into today's video, and I'm going to give you 20 of my favourite or most used plugins. And the thing about this is it's not actually something, you know, so new or, you know, this most special new plugin. It's about really like knowing what you're doing when you're using plugins and why you're using particular ones. I think people often get like too obsessed with, you know, you need this new plugin or this new like amazing like effect, but you haven't actually mastered the channel EQ yet. And that's kind of yeah, going back to basics. I think really simplifying things is actually it's kind of like the most important thing with production. I think that the more that I've been producing over the years, the more I've got more simplified and clear on what I'm doing. It's just leveled up my game, so I hope I can help some of you guys out with that. So I'm going to run through 20 plugins. I'm going to explain why I use each one, and then if you are very generous and you want to support me on Discord, on Patreon, I'm dropping an extra 5 special plugins on there after this video as well, but that's exclusive access only. So let's get into the top and most important 20 plugins. So obviously you guys know that I absolutely love Vital, and it's not really included on here, but might as well just say hi to Vital anyway. So hi Vital, yeah, amazing plugin. But yeah, we're gonna jump into number 1, which is the channel EQ. Obviously you need to have an EQ. I think that using a stock EQ is usually good enough. I like to have an analyzer on there, but it's not essential if you've got span. But I mean, it really helps if you can see, you know, what you're analyzing. But the most important thing is to have an EQ that has mid-side, because you need to be EQing the sides and the mids and the stereo, you know, in whatever given situation you're in. So any decent mid-side EQ plugin that doesn't take up much CPU is great. I think the channel EQ is pretty much almost as good as FabFilter, so I absolutely love using that, and it doesn't take up much CPU, nice and easy. Number 2 is the LFO Tool. This is it was a kind of toss-up between channel EQ and LFO Tool as my most used or most important, because it's about the frequencies and it's about the volume, and those are the 2 most important dynamics of a song. And yeah, I love the LFO tool to modulate the volume. So I use it for a lot of things. You know, I just drawing in volume automation on longer passages of audio, or doing like drawing in my side chains, and you know, just using the volume to dip out the bass line or whatever around the kick or snare. Using it almost to shape like drum layers and things, and make them like shorter and snappier. So much you can do with it, but really never underestimate the power of volume automation and taking things away. That can be really important in your track. Next is the gain plugin, and I like the one from Kilohertz because it literally has nothing other than gain. And you know, it's very simple to talk about a gain plugin, but what is important about using it is using it in different parts throughout your processing chain. So you know, it's not like I just want to turn it up at the beginning or at the end. I'll want to use it specifically in certain sections when I think, okay, now I need to make it louder, or you know, maybe I need to make it quieter, for example, but usually making things louder. But it's really important to have a gain plugin so you can gain stage correctly and, you know, add extra volume here and there, like throughout your processing when you need to. Next, we have the transient shaper from Kilohertz. I love this one. It's really nice and simple, easy to use. I'm not a big fan of boosting the attack. I think you need to have sounds that already have the right transient and not artificially introduce more of a transient. So I'm usually using it to take down sustain, to shorten and tighten up percussion loops and things like that, or to take down the attack when a particular hi-hat or a sound with a transient is just a bit too loud. So taking that down. So usually using it only to take things away. Next, I've got the Chroma Verb from Logic, and I absolutely love this. And I've got this reflective hall mode that I kind of use as my sort of default, and just make sure that I always sort of take out on the EQ the low end and just play with the high end. And the decay. That's just how long the reverb's going to be. And what I love about the Chroma Verb is it's got the EQ on it, most importantly, and it's also got dry wet, so I can keep in all of my dry signal and just add like a touch of reverb. So I'm using it to put things into a space, but you can barely hear it, but I'm not taking any of the like dry signal away, so I'm not losing any of the audio. And then where I'm just EQing it, so it's just a bit of high end, it's not really going to clash with anything. So I love to use just like 5 or 7. 7's my favorite number. You know, my presets, I sell them at €7. I won't tell you why. It's a bit embarrassing why number 7 is my favorite number. Some of you might already know. But yeah, 7% is perfect for this kind of effect. And it's like when those sounds, like one shots or particular things, they just need to be put in a space like a little bit. That's why I love to use this one. And any reverb will be great for that. But like I said, an EQ on the reverb is wicked, and a dry and wet separate control is wicked, because you can just throw it on your channel and you don't have to worry about all these sends and stupid things that you can't even see what's going on. Next up, we have the Convolution Easy from Melder Production. I absolutely love this. I've always used Convolution Reverb, and it's really important to add extra character to your sound, because you know they're pre-recorded like spaces. And if you get a good combination of like a nice sound that you've made with a nice, you know, the perfect combination of a pre-recorded space, you just like create this combo effect of like the best kind of space for your sound. And by having so many different options, you can like get lucky and try and hit like a nice convolution reverb that really like brings your sound to life. And I used to use, I think it was Altiverb or something, but it was so CPU intensive, and I couldn't get it to work on my new system. So I'm stuck with this one, but it's good enough. It's got enough sounds in there, and I can usually find something in the special section or maybe in the sound design section that will just kind of work for a particular sound to like give it that extra character and make it sound a bit different in the mix. Next up, I have the Endless Smile, and again, there's a lot of sort of reverb and delay at the moment, but reverb and delay is just the producer's like most useful tool in a way, because you know you're blending sounds together, and you have to you have to blend the sound together, you know, with everything else, and that's where reverb and delays come into play. And so without them, you're kind of just stuck. You're never going to get that nice sort of blending of elements. And it's so simple, but the effect is just so wonderful. You know, it just turns any piece of audio into an infinitely long kind of reverbed sound. And you can use that to make rises, reverses, sweeps on your snare, on your bass, on everything, adding tails, pushing everything into a big space. It's just absolutely amazing plugin. Next up, we have the Rift Feedback Lite, which is a free one, and I absolutely love this one. And it's a delay, and if I kind of were to separate delay and reverb in my head, reverb is like I'm blending things and I'm putting things into a room, but delay, I want to like lengthen the actual audio, like make it a longer audio file, but not like in a room kind of way, or I want to add like more stereo to it. So what I love on this is the ping pong mode, because it will delay it to the left and the right. And then also the reason it's so great, and I try to use it on the free mode, so you know, not to the grid, so you can kind of like, you can get a bit more of a realistic sound when you like add in a delay that you've kind of done by ear, because it's not quite right, and I love that about it. And the feedback, just for the length, I love that it's got high pass and low pass, so you can just add like a bit of high end kind of delay stereo effect, so you don't affect your low end. And yeah, great to have a little bit of mix in there. And yeah, I'll often use it just in a very small amount, again, for example, like 7% sometimes, just to add like a tiny bit of a stereo image. Or, you know, I might use it more extremely, like in certain sort of creative situations as well, and have it up at like 50% or something. Next up is the Echo Boy, and there's an Echo Boy and an Echo Boy Junior, but this one is great as well. And yeah, the reason I use this one is this is like kind of like with the convolution reverb rather than a normal reverb. This is one that's adding like extra character, because it's got all these different modes and it's got like kind of a different weirdness to the sound. So I like to use this to add special effects delays. Like for example, on like a vocal, you can do a sort of telephone effect or like lo-fi kind of stuff. So this is really awesome for more creative delays, when you have like a space to fill, but you want it to be a bit different and a bit weird, and I just kind of mess around a little bit with the audio, and I love the Echo Boy for that. Next up is just a classic echo. So this is another delay, of course, And it's just really simple, you know, just the speed that you want to delay it, and then the dry and the wet, and the color, so just kind of EQing it a little bit, taking out the low end and how long you want it to be. And I like to use this because it's like quite sort of simple. I like to use it to lengthen the reverb and delays that I've already put on a sound. So if, for example, I've delayed a sound a bit, I've reverbed it a bit, but I want to like really make it long in like a breakdown section or something. So then I'll do like a final echo after everything, just to make it like that step like further, so it keeps going and it just becomes longer. So that's kind of the only main reason that I use that. I don't use it as a like really as like a creative thing, because I like the Rift feedback light or the Echo Boy to like get a nice sound, and this is just more of a utility thing to like lengthen it further if I have to. After that we have the F6 from Waves. Now we're getting into sort of compression, and I love this because it's a dynamic multiband sidechain tool. And I talked about the LFO tool. I love to use that as like volume dipping side chaining, so you can really take out all of the audio. But with this, I like to do more like kind of subtle like side chaining. So for example, you know, I've taken out the transient of like the kick and the snare like on my basses, you know, so that the kick and snare can really cut through. But now I want to like do another side chain that's a bit longer and a bit more subtle, and on this way I can sort of target the exact frequency area that I want to side chain, and then just sort of bring it down on the threshold and the range, adjust the attack and the release, and then I've got this like extra level of dynamic control, which is a bit more subtle and a bit more focused, like in the specific frequency areas that I want to work in. And it's kind of more of a final mix down thing I'll do on my groups and things like that. But absolutely amazing plugin, really, really easy to use. Next up, I have my normal sort of compressor, which is the glue compressor that I use a lot. And this is something I don't really tend to use too much compression, or I don't want to use a compressor to make things louder. But what I will use this for is I've got a group of audio, or like, you know, a long audio file where the peaks are very different, and I want to just sort of flatten them out. So for example, if I've got like a lot of cymbals, you know, and there's like lots of different hats, and sometimes they kind of play together and it becomes too loud, you know. So I love to use this, like for example in my cymbal group, just to like a little bit of threshold and like a no attack and no release and a small like ratio, just to like flatten out those kind of loud peaks and like make the audio a bit more compressed. But I don't want to like compress everything and make everything like squashed, you know. So it's kind of just using it on sounds that are too loud and that I want to sort of bring down. So that's the main reason why I would use this plugin. Next up we have the SDRR, and I absolutely love this one, and I love to use it to give a bit of a treble boost and a bit of an analog kind of feel. And it's kind of like saturation almost. It's sort of a compressor, but it's got these kind of modes on it that you can switch between. I love sort of just boosting like the treble, trying out the desk mode is great as well. And yeah, you can really just like, it's almost a little bit like saturation, you know. You can kind of boost the sound and enhance it and color it in like a certain way, and that's why I absolutely love this one. Next up we have the Fresh Air, which is also a free one, and I just think this sounds really great on vocals. For example, I love adding a bit of presence or like particular lead, or if you want to make one element in your track like stick out in the high end and the brightness above everything else, then I would use this like only on that, but like not on anything else. So you're adding the differences like with different coloration to the different elements in your sound. So I like to use this like particularly on like just one part of my kind of main elements. Next up we have the Decapitator, which is an absolute classic that I've been using for years, and I don't always use it anymore, to be fair. We're getting sort of down the list now, but I always love the E mode and turning up the brightness and driving it, and it's just like on a sound that I don't have to worry too much about messing up the low end, because it kind of can a little bit. For example, if I've got like a secondary mid bass or like some kind of effect that I want to just like saturate and distort and give a bit of brightness, then I'll go for the Decapitator, and it will give its own little flavor to it as well. But yeah, really, really nice plugin, but I just would be careful of not using it like all the time on everything, but it's definitely got its place in my arsenal. Next up, I have the M Saturator, and it's not actually my favorite saturation plugin, and I've not found the best saturation plugin yet. I think I'm still like missing that from my arsenal completely, to be honest. But this does definitely do the job nicely, and I love the harmonics and sort of turning up the fifth or the third, and it will just introduce these nice sort of harmonics in the high end and saturate the sound. But like I said, you know, it's a great saturation plugin, but I just think that I can find a better one. So let me know in the comments down below if you have like a really awesome saturation plugin that you could recommend. Particularly a multi-band one would be wicked. Next up, I have a filter freak. I think everyone needs to have a good filter in their arsenal, and the way that I use it the most, I suppose, would be a low pass. And you know, I love to just modulate the low pass and put it onto like a rhythm and put it to my grid, for example, and then, you know, I could do like a nice sort of ramp up or something like that, so I can create these sort of long, like drawn out like filter sweeps on Reese's and things like that. And yeah, you've got to have a nice filter to, you know, put some automation in when you're not automating with volume or reverb. You know, filters are you know, very necessary, and I love the way this one sounds. So yeah, big ups to Soundtoys, long time lover of their products, and yeah, Filter Freak is the one for me. Next up, I have the pitch shift, which is from Kilohertz, and I love to use this more as a creative effect when I'm not particularly concerned with if I'm destroying the audio on a sound. So for like FX sounds or like, you know, vocal layers or things like that, not like the main most important sound, but I love to sort of pitch things down a bit, mix it. I love the way you can mix in like a bit of a lower kind of octave of the sound, and although it will like not be the highest quality because it's kind of doing it through its pitching algorithm, you can sort of adjust the grain size to try and get it to work and fit, and then when you kind of mix it in, you could sort of like almost take out high end using it by mixing in like a lower octave, or the same way, you know, you could add in like a little bit of a third kind of chord like harmonic to the sound by mixing in a bit of that. So absolutely love the pitch shift. I use it all the time, but yeah, it's like something to use creatively and not like on your main kind of sounds for me. And finally, I've got the almost finally, I've got the Camel Crusher, and it's so good on this version of Logic that you don't even get the interface. But to fix that, I just go to the controls, and then I've just adjusted everything in there, and everything's turned off apart from the master volume up at 1 and the master mix, and yeah, the master is on, and it's just being used as a clipper. So you can use any other kind of clipper. I know on Ableton you can use the glue compressor or something as the clipper. You just turn the soft clip on and have the dry all the way to zero or wet or 100 or something. But yeah, any clipping plugin is great, but you kind of need one to like just stop everything going above 0. So Camel Crusher is just one that I use for that. And finally, we have the span. I mean, where would we be without that? You know, analyzing the final output of the sound after the clipper is the most important thing for me, and checking where I've got holes in the spectrum, checking that the levels are all perfect and nice and tasty. And yeah, I think it's the best analyzer out there. So those are the top 20 plugins that I use the most. And now I've got like an extra little bonus video for 5 like really cool ones that I've been using recently. So join Patreon if you want to find out about those. But if not, thanks a lot for watching the video. Hope you learned a little bit. Peace, much love. See you soon.